Hello and welcome to the English Magnet. Today's video, Adverbs of Frequency Made Easy. Adverbs of frequency are words that help us describe how often something happens. They're a big part of everyday English, especially when you want to talk about your routines, habits, and regular activities. Whether you're explaining how often you go to the gym, how frequently you study English, or how seldom you eat fast food, adverbs of frequency make your sentences clearer and more precise. So, we'll cover a comprehensive list and discuss where they are placed in a sentence. Let's get going. How often? Adverbs of frequency are basically part of a spectrum ranging from 0% to 100%, helping us express how often something happens. While the following list is a helpful guide, keep in mind that there can be some flexibility in how these adverbs relate to specific percentages, so feel free to use them as a general guide. 100% of the time. Always. I always brush my teeth before bed. Constantly. She constantly checks her phone. 80 to 90% of the time. Usually. They usually go for a walk after dinner. Generally. We generally have a meeting on Mondays. Regularly. She regularly attends yoga classes. Normally. He normally wakes up at 6 a.m. 60 to 70% of the time. Often. I often visit my grandparents on weekends. You can pronounce it often or often, where the T is silent, whatever feels right to you. Frequently. He frequently travels for work. Commonly. This plant commonly grows in tropical areas. 40 to 50% of the time. Sometimes. She sometimes forgets her keys. Occasionally. We occasionally eat out. Periodically. The software is periodically updated. 20 to 30% of the time. Seldom. He seldom goes to the gym. Rarely. They rarely watch TV. Infrequently. The team infrequently meets in person. 10% of the time. Hardly ever. She hardly ever eats junk food. Scarcely. I scarcely remember the details. Barely. He barely speaks in meetings. 0% of the time. Never. I never drink coffee in the evening. When asking a question, your go-to adverb is ever. It doesn't cover any specific part of the spectrum since it's part of the question, so the answer could be with any other adverb of frequency. Ever. Do you ever watch movies with subtitles? I always watch. I occasionally watch. I never watch. Position in a sentence. Now, where do you fit that adverb in a sentence? It can be confusing, but there are clear rules and some room to maneuver as well. Subject plus adverb plus main verb for present simple and past simple, except to be. When you're dealing with a single word verb, the adverb goes in between the subject and the main verb. That's it. I occasionally forget where I left my keys. Kevin constantly had fun at the arcade. Subject plus to be plus adverb for the present simple and past simple. Ignore the previous rule when dealing with the verb to be. In such cases, the adverb goes after it. Ice cream is never bad in summer. The students were rarely mischievous in PE class. Subject plus modal verb plus adverb plus main verb. When you use a modal verb, like can, will, must, or should, you add the adverb right after it and before the main verb. She will often call you at night. You can usually leave by 5 p.m. Subject plus auxiliary verb plus adverb plus main verb for continuous tenses, perfect tenses, and perfect continuous tenses. Many tenses include an auxiliary, to have or to be. And again, like with modal verbs, you insert the adverb in between the auxiliary and the main verb. Remember that some tenses require more than one auxiliary. Have been, for instance. Well, then, the adverb goes before been. You basically add the adverb after the first auxiliary. They are always cheating in exam sessions. I had frequently thought about calling her, but never did. By the time Kelly retires, she'll have hardly ever been taken vacations throughout her career. Imperatives. Imperatives are used to give orders, recommendations, or requests, and are characterized by the absence of subjects. You usually put the adverb after the verb, and even at the end of the sentence in some cases. Check your messages regularly. Call me sometimes. However, with always and never, you tend to emphasize the statement by placing the adverb at the beginning. In the negative form, you just add don't at the very beginning. Never give up. Don't always rely on your colleagues. At the beginning of a sentence. Some adverbs can also be placed at the beginning of a sentence, usually, normally, generally, occasionally, and sometimes. Normally, the weather in this city can be quite unpredictable. Or, the weather in this city can normally be quite unpredictable. Both are correct. Generally, students find the final exam challenging. Or, students generally find the final exam challenging. Again, both okay. But not, always, hardly ever, seldom, rarely, and never, unless it's an imperative sentence. Never we go downtown on weekends. That's definitely wrong. Go with the sure thing. We never go downtown on weekends. When in doubt, go with the classic form by nudging the adverb between the subject and verb. So there you have it, adverbs of frequency, short and sweet. Add them to your vocabulary and always strive to improve. Hopefully, this has been helpful. A link to some free material to practice by yourselves can be found in the description below. Keep practicing and you'll get the hang of it. Thank you for watching. Until next time.